Ishan, you're a photojournalist with a little bit of an activist streak, just like a lot of us. I'm not singling you out in this regard. How do you balance and
Hmm.
reconcile those two worlds? Do these two roles now need to be an amalgamation to be more effective? Because we see how people are kind of become a little, inured or thick-skinned to images of violence, of images of suffering, where they are not really having the kind of same impact that they used to maybe 20 years ago.
I definitely don't think of myself as an activist. I think activists actually do far more meaningful work in many ways. I think where I fall short is an activist would never let go of a story,
Right.
but because I have been doing, I jump from story to story actually a lot. There's a lot of parachute journalism which photographers do.
Right.
Sometimes it's impossible not to, because you have to also make a living and all that.
Of
So I
course.
think I try and counter that in ways, but I'm far from an activist. I don't necessarily have a stand at. I don't necessarily. Okay, can you?
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah. Don't
Um,
just keep going. Don't worry about it.
yeah. No, I definitely don't see myself as an activist. I think the ways that photographers fall short, activists complete that process. Maybe journalists, not just photographers,
Yeah,
journalists.
yeah.
Activists might complete that process because they don't let go of a story just because something else comes up. Um,
But you think
Seeing it to its end is the difference.
But do you think that as we go ahead in the future, as this evolves a little bit, and we realize that if we do want to have some sort of impact, now I'm not under the illusion or misconception that anything we do can bring about genuine change or make like a huge difference to someone's life or completely turn things around in some way or whatever. Sometimes, yes, rarely it can happen more miraculously than anything else, but mostly it doesn't happen like that. But do you think that it's important for people like us to sort of incorporate, as activism is a loaded word, but what I mean is maybe a way to sort of utilize the things that we're creating in more meaningful ways, in ways that engage with policymakers, in ways that engage with communities as well. For instance, you've worked on a long form assignment on air pollution, and you spoke about it a lot. You had an exhibit. There was a lot of engagement around that issue as well, and it
Right.
also pulled you out from just speaking purely as a journalist to sort of saying that no, this is something we pay attention to. It's not just my pictures or my story, but the fact that this affects all of us. So what do you feel about going
Yeah,
ahead?
I think it's sort of. I I think maybe in some ways it does connect to what I meant to say earlier. Maybe I wasn't being very clear, but that I think as journalists we engage with stories and then we let go of stories
Yeah,
because we move on to other things. I
correct.
think seeing things to an end of some sort, a meaningful end of some sort, making sure that help reaches after you have highlighted something, or making sure that something which is stuck in a bureaucratic process is with a little bit of pressure might like continue to engage with your story. I think
Right.
that's probably the best way I can see going forward. I did find that working on the pollution series, see, I find a lot of times the pictures will either remain on my hard drive, which is terrible. That's my doing, of course, and I need to work on that. But also, if I'm working for a client, those pictures will be used in one place, and that's about it, and then I never see them. So what was nice with the project that I worked with our friend Aruna Chandrasekhar
Right.
um, um, on pollution was that it got pitched to nearly every publication around, and because it was already sort of funded work, already done, packaged, text captured, photos, I mean no one had to really do too much and everyone was ready to publish it, so which meant that it actually went I mean it got a lot of eyeballs, I would imagine, at
Right.
least in the Indian press.
Right.
And the exhibition that we did in both Bombay and Delhi got a lot of footfalls of not the usual art going viewers, so there was a lot of engagement with schools and colleges, which was quite interesting because they left a lot of feedback, and it actually made sense. Yeah. So I think there are ways of using the same work that we do as photojournalists, as I do as photojournalists, but to engage with other people who might be able to use that work better. Like during COVID, I mean, I'm happy to share images with people who are actually doing groundwork in collating data, in doing research on, say, what's happening with the migrants. So, I mean, I'm happy to share images if they help in uh, telling that story clearly to more people, of course.
So I guess maybe it's an extension rather than a radical, reworking of how things are happening and how the modalities of this entire thing works between
Yeah,
activism and
yeah,
journalism,
yeah.
the ground between them.
Sure.
Great. So why is it important for working photojournalists and journalists as well to teach others, especially those from non-urban areas, so that more people have the agency, knowledge, and platform to tell their own stories? We kind of touched upon this a little bit yesterday, but I was wondering if you'd like to elaborate a little bit on why this is important for us, for people like you, for I'll be so bold as to include myself as well, and a whole bunch of others to sort of share this knowledge that we have gathered, or we've been privileged enough to gather.
Right. Uh, I mean, from what I'm seeing with in the last 6 months, we keep going back to these last 6 months.
Yeah.
I hope we can think about other things in the future. But just in the last 6 months, if you look at the amount of work that's been done by citizen journalists, students,
Right.
it's astounding. And I think most people do have the skills, as it were, to tell their stories. They know what to say. They know how to say it. They might need help in terms of technology and sort of platforms, maybe. But I think people know how to tell their stories. Even if you look at what some of the migrant stories that are coming out right
Yes.
now,
Yes.
uh, they're 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 fantastic because there's simple recordings made on their phones and sent to journalists like Chinky Sinha, who threw in her
I
chicks with her
into the
phone number
buses.
into the tape.
Yeah.
It makes full sense. I mean, I'm so glad she did that because
Yeah.
it got uh, real stories out the fastest without any intermediary. So
Right.
I
Right.
think maybe maybe journalists can use their position and their platforms to allow people who they've been largely using as sources and fixers till now,
Right.
maybe just here we'll incorporate you into the stories. I mean, of course, you'll have to control how you do it and follow journalistic sort of ethics
Right.
and standards.
Right.
Uh, this is just an idea.
Yeah, yeah, of course. But like you mentioned, I think even when you shared that story, that the BBC even paid some of the migrant workers as as sort of correspondents or contributors or whatever you want to call it, which is again
Yeah.
a model that has not been too prevalent, but which could kind of revolutionize the way that we're getting stories out. And no matter what,
Yeah.
no matter how much, even if one of us, and I know there are a couple of journalists and there's a filmmaker as well, if I'm not wrong, who walked 700-800 kilometers with
Yes.
a group of
I saw.
workers, and sort of documented the whole process and everything. Even then, it's still a sort of a break from his or her normal life, and it was the same thing for us as well. When we sort of, even when we try to get under the skin of people that we're sort of working with, or trying to tell a story, we'll
Sure.
never know what it really is like until we are that person. So I guess
Right.
that perspective is of great value now, and hopefully, I guess more publications start to see that inherent value in it and kind of encourage it a little bit more, encourage their journalists as well to work in those ways. Maybe there are new kind of methods that we can explore and think about.
Yeah. I mean, I think initiatives like Khabar Laheria, I mean, they're doing fantastic work, right?
Right.
It's it's so different, and the kind of stories you read are they're just more real.
Yeah, of course.
There's no filter.
I think there's a certain authenticity that comes through, that's difficult to kind of reproduce as a person who's not going through that particular situation. No matter how much empathy and compassion and whatever else we have, there's still a line that is very hard to sort of cross until there's a kind of immersion where there is the separation sort of reduces to a point, and then you can sort of feel like you're a little closer, like you said, little closer to the truth. And we are talking about this with your project Feel a String Thunder as well, where you're saying when people start to see themselves and they sort of start to see the authenticity even in your images of the authenticity of their lives and who they are and what they're doing and what their lives are like. I guess that also kind of brings it closer and closer to some sort of a inherent truth, if it is something like that, which is hard to, of course, define or find. Yeah, it is a difficult thing. Yeah, so Delhi, of course, is where it's your stomping grounds. It's where you were born. It's your city. How has Delhi featured as a participant in your growth, both as a human and as a creator?
Okay. Yeah, I guess when you live in the same place all your life, I've lived here all my life and worked out of here all my life. It sort of recedes into the background in many ways, and you stop noticing it. And actually, you can only complain about it. It's too hot, it's too crowded. So I'm not sure. I haven't really considered how Delhi plays a role in my work. I have featured Delhi in some work before.
Right.
Specific parts of Delhi rather, where I used to work. I did a bunch of pictures outside my office when I used to work at Open Magazine, which then became a project where I sort of played around with some of those images and some of the images I made in Japan.
Yeah,
But
and
yeah,
which we will
that's
in
how
the
I
project
guess.
Inbetweeners, which we can talk about later as well.
Right. Right. Okay. Yeah. So I'm not sure how Delhi features in my. I actually don't do that much work in Delhi. I'm one of those photographers that actually doesn't shoot in Delhi. Uh, since I stopped working as a full-time photojournalist or an employed photojournalist,
Right.
I tend to only work when someone's sending me an assignment, or if something I really want to do myself.
Right.
Not too many assignments, by the way, so
Yeah.
I'm home most of the time. But so yeah, it's only this year that I've actually engaged with Delhi as much as I have in many years.
And it's been a very intense engagement for the last 6 months, like we've been saying again and again. So I guess you're making up for
Yeah.
lost time for sure.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Everything came to
Lost
Delhi,
time.
so I guess. Yeah.
Well, yeah.
And speaking about, okay, so you're talking about your time at Open as well, and you've done the full range of jobs basically available to a photojournalist. You've been a staff photographer, you've been a junior staff photographer, a senior staff photographer. You've in many well-known publications, some of the biggest ones in India that have very strong, robust, photojournalism departments as well. From the outside, I've never been part of any of these. You've also been a photo editor, and then of course now you're saying you're working as an independent photojournalist on assignments and things like that. So what have you learned from each of these phases, and what would you never want to do again? Is there anything that you're like, okay, I'm done with that, I'm not going to go back to that work or that?
I think maybe I would have liked to have tried it out working for myself in the beginning, because I think that would have made me push certain limits. I think
Right.
what happens by sort of, I went straight from college into an internship and into employment.
Right.
I mean, freedom and independence was my first
Sure.
sort of goal.
Sure. Financial
Yeah.
independence. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean, just financial independence and being
Right.
able to go where you want to go. I mean, my parents are lovely people. They've never held me back, but I just wanted to do it faster, I guess.
Sure.
And so that teaches you other things, that puts you into situations that you wouldn't normally be in.
Right.
You work in an office, you work under someone, you learn about how to deal with people, how to pick up skills, all of that. So that was obviously very useful.
Right.
But it also then plugs you into a system that is working for itself. A magazine or a newspaper is not really necessarily concerned with your growth,
Right.
sadly. So you get you spend a lot of time doing things which you may not. The value there might not be that much. So yeah, I've spent a lot of time taking pictures of things which at that point seemed really pointless to me. In retrospect, I wish I had the knowledge and the skills and generally the information I have now, and I was doing those same things.
Yeah.
Because for example, I shot a lot of um, um, sort of lifestyle stories in Punjab.
Okay.
You know, for one of the supplements for India Today.
Right.
And to me, they seem like incredibly boring stories. You know, about, I don't know, nail painting and just weird stuff which doesn't really strike a chord with me. But now in retrospect, it did put me into situations, and I should have possibly used them better.
Right.
But because I was young and stupid, I really didn't pay attention to all that. Real waste in retrospect. Uh,
And also encourage maybe
so yeah,
by the organization to, to get those one or two shots that are needed for the layout and move on, to the next thing, I guess, right?
yeah. So I mean, it's difficult to sort of point fingers at the organizations,
Yeah, no,
because
no, not
that's
to
not their
point, but
job.
to
They're not
understand it.
meant to do that. But yeah, I think if you start out with some sort of somewhat threshed out ideas of your own, then you can possibly you have a slightly clearer direction. I think I had to find my direction
Sure.
through all these jobs,
Sure.
which actually led me to many of the things that I am interested in. I might not have known when I started,
Sure.
but yeah, I see the trajectory sort of mapped out through all these situations, through a starting job and a photo editor job as well. You know.
Right. And that must have been different, right? From being the guy who's out there being told what to do by the photo editor and sort of being, there's certain parameters that you're supposed to fulfill and get back and everything. Now you're on the other side.
Actually, I mean, I should give it to Bandeep, who was my first boss in Today. I used to work at an afternoon paper, and he hired a bunch of us, Bandeep Singh, and he hired a bunch of us, all novices essentially, and he moved back to the magazine soon after. I think in about a year and a half, or maybe a couple of years. And so essentially, he left a bunch of us, 20 somethings, who were in charge of running the daily schedule. You know, so
Right.
assignments would come, and there was no boss. There was no. I mean, everyone tried to be boss, of course, but there was no boss. And Bandeep was still the boss, and we, file pictures to him eventually at the end of the day, and he'd obviously be overseeing.
Right.
But there was so much freedom, which actually taught a lot about how to handle a department, how to work with people that closely, because there are lots of nitty gritty, ego issues, and also figuring out, like, actually, there's no point giving an assignment to someone who doesn't want to do that.
Right.
Try and match assignments to people's interests, or what they like to do, what they're good at, and it becomes easier. So these things, no one's going to teach you. And when you get into a position where you're going to be handling people, it takes time to learn all these things. So I think those things were good to learn in the beginning. Thankfully,
And
where I
then
was.
being a photo editor, I guess you sort of took these learnings as well. But was it any different?
Uh,
Then the buck
well,
stops with you,
the
right?
Helka, yeah, the Helka was a different magazine,
Right.
of course,
Of
than the
course,
others.
yeah.
It wasn't a massive structure.
Right.
So we had very small teams.
Right.
So photo editor also meant photographer, also meant assignment organizer. It meant many things.
Right.
You weren't just doing photo editing. I was shooting a lot of stories as well. Uh, yeah, so I think it was a hodgepodge of a job. So you were doing many aspects of the job, and it was a tiny team. So it was good fun to work. And yeah, so
You
I
miss
think it was.
you miss it?
Do I miss being in the office? I sometimes miss being in office. Yeah, because an office is, I mean, not the work necessarily, but the office space is quite. It can be quite energetic, and it can. I mean, you feed off people's ideas. You riff off things. I thoroughly enjoyed working with some of my colleagues. The Shaukat Das Gupta, who was a writer there, and Shuddeep Chaudhary was the art director. I mean, it was fun working with them. So, you put a picture on page and someone can add the right text and make it look, I mean, it was, it was collaborative.
Yeah.
This is very isolating. You're doing everything. I'm not a designer. I don't know how to make pages, but I'll keep making these crappy layouts to send to, to people. But so, yeah.
No, I know
I miss the office. Yeah.
I know the feeling. I mean, it's been 12 years for me now since I've been, sort of jobless. But yeah, I definitely miss it sometimes. It's nice even when I do get to collaborate on, certain projects or whatever with other people. It definitely feels more, like you said, there's a lot you can feed off other people. They feed off you. You sort of push each other a little bit. There's a nice feeling of a team. I grew up playing cricket, so I guess there's the team thing also. The dynamic also is nice.
Well, there was a pool parlor right next to the Tehelka office, so that's where we spent most of our time actually. Not cricket, but indoor cool activity, AC.
Yeah, no one wants you to play cricket out in the Delhi heat, so it's fine. Yeah. So you've been in many dangerous situations with only camera in hand. Even though some amount of knowledge in navigation and how to navigate those situations comes with experience. Have you ever feared for your life or safety? And how do you ensure that the decisions, because the decisions you're taking in those circumstances are really, really important. The other day I was watching this documentary on Hondros, on Chris Hondros. I mean, of course, every photojournalist knows the story, but for those who don't know, him and another famous British photojournalist, Tim Hetherington, were both killed in Libya during the fall of the Gaddafi government. And they basically they took the decision to go back to a place, although they were warned not to, and then they were shelled and unfortunately, died in that situation. And he talks about this a lot in that documentary, about how how the not only hyper awareness but the decision making is also so important, because just a split second here and there can mean the difference between losing a limb or your life, or surviving and coming away with some great images or whatever you need to get. So how do you navigate that?
Yeah. I'm not sure if I've been in the same sorts of situations.
Yeah, of course.
In,
sure. Those are extreme
situations. Libya.
Those
are extreme situations. Though a lot of young photographers did make it to Libya. Actually, if you look at the people who went, there were a lot of young, unexperienced.
And they said that they talk about that also. A lot of rookies along with us, and we have to take care of them. We have to make sure that they're okay. And then one of them, Nicole Tung, who's now a famous photojournalist herself, was very young when she had gone there. Also speaks about this and how Chris Hondros took her and other youngsters under his wing, whereas whole bunch of other senior photographers were not like that. They were very, very grizzled veterans, and they just wanted to get, because they didn't want the responsibility of being responsible for another life. It's not just someone and you're helping them out. It's a life that you're responsible for.
Absolutely, and in those situations, I can imagine that puts you at risk also. So you've anyway convinced family that I'll be safe and I'll look out for myself, and then it's understandable at every level.
Of course.
So that said, I don't think I've been in those kinds of situations, thankfully. There've definitely been a few situations. I think my reactions have been, quite honestly, the wrong reactions. I think I mentioned it earlier. I laughed when a young, inexperienced Salwa Judum member pointed a gun at me while I was sitting inside a car. Right. Possibly not the best reaction, but I was trying to be relaxed and happy, and hoping that would diffuse the situation. It did eventually, so maybe it wasn't the entirely wrong thing, but the second situation that I can remember was actually I was with my friend and colleague. I worked with him, Aman Sethi, in Chhattisgarh, and I've been there many times. I've walked around places which are hotbeds and whatnot, and I've never really been attacked or threatened or anything like that particularly. But on this one occasion, we were moving around with some of the CRPF forces. It was election time, local elections, and suddenly there was sort of gunfire, and there were some bullets coming our way, it seemed, and everyone jumped onto the ground. So of course we also did instinctively, but it seems so unreal. No one who shoots at people. Like, you don't expect people to shoot at you. Really, I wasn't expecting the Maoists to be shooting at us. We were with the CRPF, hence I
Also
guess it should have been expected.
Yeah.
So we did the right things. So we lay on the ground, but I took these pictures of people who were next to me, and the pictures looked like nothing because the bullets were flying maybe over us or far from us. They weren't really getting anywhere close to us. It was just a bunch of people lying on the ground.
Yeah.
So it felt a little silly by the end of it. Thankfully, it was silly. So there are situations, but quite honestly, I don't think I felt that unsafe. And yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah, but I guess, yeah, but it's still, I mean, it still shows that, I mean, even then, any small decision can make a difference and lead you down a different path. But yeah, but I get your point. It depends on, what you have been through specifically, and what you can speak of in that sense. Yeah. So
I think you have to read this. I think you have to read situations for what they are, and try and pay attention to the details, and try and react to those details. So if you feel you're in a tense area, and someone is not happy with you being there, you feel it, right? You don't have to really ask that person much.
Yeah.
So you should move away. You should give in to those feelings that you pick up from people. I think definitely when you're in situations where you feel unsafe.
So a sense of being mindful of and aware of what's happening around you, of what the energy is like of people around you as well, and also being aware enough that you're paying attention to those instincts as well, and not then at that point reacting from a sort of a rational mind and things like that, which can mislead you in these.
Yeah.
So pay attention.
Panicking is always
yeah,
going to be a problem.
That in any situation, yeah, I'm a firm believer that panic just makes anything worse, no matter what the situation is. So yeah, so that's the thing. So
I think I haven't been scared of situations and people as much. Well, maybe situations, but not people as much. I don't know how to swim, which while you're traveling around can be. So we had to cross this river in Gadchiroli. It was in Spate. There were tree trunks going down it.
Wow.
And the only boat we had accessible was it could take barely two people. It was narrow, like really narrow and really shallow. Right. So you were 1.5 inches above the water, as it were, and sitting with your sort of legs up. And it was a good, 200, 150 meters, 180 meters across
a gushing
fast
river.
Water.
Yeah.
Across a gushing river. Yeah. I mean, that was scary, because I knew at that point that if something happens here, there's nothing that's saying me I can't swim. So
do you know to swim now?
I think those situations I find no, sadly, no, I don't know how to swim. I'm semi scared of water, so I'm not a swimmer.
Fair enough. So from that very serious question, I'm moving on to a lighter one. I mean, some people will call this also very serious, but I look at it as lighter. Your trip to Pakistan, which is something that was that found that rang a lot of bells in my head for two reasons. One, because I've always wanted to go to Pakistan, and I've only heard lovely things about it. And the other thing that is that piqued my interest a lot was that you went for India's last ever cricket tour to Pakistan, last ever full tour in 2006, if I'm not wrong. Is that right?
Yeah, I think it was 2006. Yeah. 6.
Yeah, 6. And I remember watching the series.
I'm not a, bizarrely, I'm not a cricket fanatic. I like watching cricket a lot, of course, but I didn't realize was it the last series that we went?
Yeah, it's the last time India ever went to Pakistan.
I thought we've been after. Oh, it's the last time, huh? Wow.
Yeah,
okay.
I think for a test, for a full series, including a test. So, the testing basically is what I really focus on.
Maybe. Right. Okay, yeah. So you're a serious aficionado.
I mean,
I wanted to go to I wanted to go to Pakistan. They were giving visas and they were giving visas to journalists easily at that point.
Okay.
So I was working for Today, the afternoon paper, which had no interest in sending me to Pakistan. Like, it's an afternoon paper for Delhi. What the hell are you going? Just shut up. But I convinced them, and they gave me a little bit of money, quite little,
Okay.
and said, if you can go, then go. And I got a train because that was the cheapest way to go.
Sure.
It was, I think, a 700 rupee ticket, and there were, a lot of people traveling on the trains. So the train became quite exciting to be in. Because there were people going to meet family. The cricket was an excuse. There were a few people who were going for cricket, and the others were, gentlemen like these who were going to meet family and had not been. So there was a lot of positive energy on this train. I've never sat in a train where the ticket collectors have come and asked me if I wanted to share food with them, and then proceeded to dance along with everyone else, just because everyone felt like dancing. It was really quite a festive atmosphere.
And it shows
It
what's
also
possible.
taught me.
Sorry, yeah, it also brought you.
Sorry.
No,
It also taught me. Sorry, this lag is getting to. Just you carry on. Tell me what you were saying.
No, nothing. I said it just goes to show that when people are, allowed to let their better instincts come out and sort of, be more friendly and be more come from a place of love rather than hatred, what can happen?
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, so please continue. There's just some sappy stuff that I had to say, but you can move on.
No, it's absolutely true. The energy was positive because everyone was going and they were happy to be going. So they were sharing their joy, I guess.
And what did it teach you? You were saying.
Well, it also taught me that you can always take a flight. There were colleagues of mine who were taking flights and getting to Lahore in whatever half an hour or whatever it was, and much easier. And you just you go through customs, you go through immigration, and you're out in the city. But that's if you can afford to go in a flight. If you can't afford to go in a flight and you can only take the train, and since I was only given a paltry little bit of money, I could only take the train if I really wanted to go. I realized that that's how a lot of people are traveling, right? Because they can't afford to fly. This is the only way, and the train is actually quite a difficult journey. This was all fun and loving in the train, but I don't know why. I mean, I can hazard a guess, but both sides make it as difficult. Even though this train was called the Friendship Series, blah blah. So the Indian side will drop you at the Indian at Atari, and you go through customs, etc. You go through your security over there, and you just wait on the platform for 6 or 7 hours, I think it was.
Wow.
This is hot. For the Pakistani train to arrive, which will then take you 45 minutes across into Lahore. I think it takes 20 minutes or half an hour to get to their version of the immigration checkpoint, and then you get back into the train and you go into the city.
Right.
But there's a 6-odd-hour wait that we went through on a hot, empty platform, and both sides do it.
Right.
So it's made difficult. Even though we had gone through customs, everything, it's all arranged, but they can't match their timings for some reason, or they couldn't match their timings on that particular occasion.
Or
it seems to make it difficult.
Yeah, or they might be making it difficult also so that it discourages the travelers or whatever, people who just want to go check it out and see what's there.
Yeah, I think it felt like at that point. It strangely felt like that it was just a way to discourage.
A lot of other photographers as well, as we can see in this picture, other than you on this journey.
Oh yeah, there was also I also met, and that's the first time I met Olivia Arthur from Magnum. She was also on this train.
Okay.
We bumped into each other. So yeah, there were lots of photographers. There was lots of photography happening. Yeah, I'm sure I feature in some of those family albums if they have them still.
Yeah, that should be an interesting story to track down. And then some interesting shots, like some action shots, which were, I don't know, did you expect something like this? Were there a lot of police and people around trying to,
Oh, this is as the train sort of slows to a crawl as it crosses the no man's land, and this is just before or somewhere around there, like suddenly horse mounted mounted police or whatever army appears and they trot along for a bit.
they're pretty friendly as well, the
Oh,
Pakistani
yeah.
side authorities.
Well, I mean, my experience of Pakistan was fantastic. I couldn't have had a better experience. I I told you my office didn't expect me to be gone for too long. I think I spent over a month nearly. Uh, Again, thanks to senior photographers, like you were mentioning earlier. It's only thanks to people like Arko Datta
Right,
from Reuters,
right.
who was very kind. He let me eat every meal with him, so I didn't pay for food, and I traveled with him in his car and things. So it was only thanks to people like that I could make that money last longer. And I ended up going to Multan and Pindi and um sorry, I didn't go to Rawalpindi. That's one place I missed. Islamabad
Karachi, I guess.
and Lahore,
The, yeah, those are good
Karachi and
places.
Pindi I missed.
Oh, okay, right.
Yeah,
And it's
I,
also,
I, I missed
yeah,
those.
and it also shows.
Those required a flight only.
Oh, okay. Yeah, but it also shows how important this kind of there's a lot of casual or maybe not so casual, but informal mentorship that goes on, in India with senior photographers, photojournalists helping out
Oh,
young people.
definitely.
And of course, we also hopefully try to pay that forward as well, because we don't have the benefit of of actual education, or a way that other people do in other parts of the world, where they have formal education and ways to have formal internships and of course mentorships and things like that. So it's wonderful to when people of their
Oh,
own accord
definitely.
are doing this kind of thing. Imagine he's shared every one of his meals with you. That says a lot about the person, of course, but also says a lot
Oh
about.
yeah, it was a bunch of us would go and eat Adnan Abidi,
Yeah,
multiple Pulitzer Prize winning. Adnan Abidi
right.
was also there. I think he was with PTI before he joined Reuters. So he was there. We were all pretty young, I guess, and it was great fun. It was
Sure. Looks
probably
like it
one of
was
the
a
best
lot of
best.
fun. This is the dancing that you're
Yeah,
talking about, I
it
guess.
was. Yes, yes, yes. There was full alcohol flowing. I mean, like, it was great.
that's
It was a
that's
last alcohol for a bit
right.
for
Which is
everyone.
easily
So
available or whatever, right?
uh,
Because there in Pakistan, I guess it's only available in five-star hotels and things like that.
yeah, some of my colleagues were staying in five-star hotels, and they had a little access, I guess. But
Right.
I was staying in someone's house thanks to people, so no access. Though I did get access once.
Yeah.
That's a that's
That's a
story.
story that will remain a mystery for now.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's a great story.
No, yeah,
Oh wow.
no mystery here. If any Indian doesn't recognize the guy on the right, yeah, it will be quite.
So cricket lovers would want to kill me because in Multan, this is when Sehwag scored 300. Right?
Yeah,
It was absurdly hot. It was whatever 48, 49
right,
in the shade.
right,
It was really hot. And on the third day, I think it looked like we were anyway winning. Whenever it looked like we were winning, Ganguly was standing at the board at the line.
right. On the
What's it
boundary
called? The
line,
border?
the boundary line.
On the boundary line. Shit,
Yeah.
I really come across as someone who doesn't follow cricket. Yeah. So at the boundary line, he was standing at the boundary line,
Right.
and I turned around to him and I was like, "Dada, we already won. Why can't you end it so we can go home?" And he just stared at me like, you little worm, sit there and do what you're supposed to do. I mean, obviously the guy had to make 300. So
Yeah, and you can't
yeah,
approach royalty like that and all. Dada, I've been told by
no.
many people that he's not like he needs to
He,
think that you're worthy of being spoken to and all.
I,
Anyway,
I I I recounted this story to him at the Calcutta airport. I bumped into him.
okay,
He was quite sweet then.
he was okay. Maybe it's the what they call white line fever. When cricketers have that.
Uh, I wouldn't know about that.
Yeah. Anyway, so
Okay.
yeah, so a couple of pictures. Umar Gul, of course, bowling what looks like could be Rahul Dravid or VVS Lakshman. I can see the Britannia
Dravid. I think it's
Dravid.
I think it's Dravid.
Yeah,
I
I
think it's
recognize the
Dravid.
shoes and the bat, so it's probably
And
Dravid.
yeah, and the just the body language seems like to me it seems like
Even in
Dravid. Yeah,
defeat,
for that man.
very humble,
Poised.
very poised and
Yeah.
humble. He's the only
This was the
one of my
first.
yeah. This is the first.
This is the first sort of proper time I was taking pictures of cricket. It was a learning experience throughout. I mean, I don't think I was very good at it to begin with. It took me a few days, but the atmosphere in these places was so fantastic. I mean, I think the Indian team got a great reception and a lot of love. People wouldn't take money from us for a variety of things. I walked past a mall and a man came out of the Levi's store, insisted that I come inside once he realized I was from India. And he handed me a size 40 jeans. And I kept telling him that, I mean, this is really too big for me.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to be able to wear it. You're like, I don't have your size. So you take this and you give it to anyone you like. It was just like, wow, I mean, who
And,
does that?
and I've heard so many stories of this. I had another friend who was a cricket journalist for many years, and then with Cricinfo and other people as well. And he's also told me so many
Okay.
stories like this about Pakistan and how nobody, not a taxi driver, not a rickshaw driver, not anybody who was shopping or anywhere took money, refused to take money from him. They kept piling stuff on him to the point where he said, I had to leave. We had to give some stuff to people in Pakistan before coming back because he had so many freebies that he was given, when he was just outside.
Exactly. I gave my jeans to someone I was staying with, who kindly put me up for like, I don't know, 3 weeks or something in Lahore.
See, that again is a wonderful thing, right? Yeah. So it just goes to show that a lot of reality is very different from the vitriol that is spewed online and,
Of
between
course.
trolls of either
Of
country.
course.
So, yeah, getting back to full screen view of just you because,
Okay.
we, we love your face so much.
Right. Thanks.
So, I just want to talk now actually about Goa Photo and why it's important to have photo festivals, but photo festivals that are inclusive, because a lot of times what happens is photo festivals end up being, very focused on the bubble that is the photo industry, and people from outside don't really engage with it, and it's just a echo chamber that sort of gets created,
Yeah,
and people are very thrilled with themselves and patting each other on the back or patting themselves, but they don't realize that there's a whole other world out there that would benefit
absolutely.
from this. How did you guys approach it? Was it something that just came about?
Well, yeah, for me, Goa Photo came about because I had submitted some stuff to Punctum, this magazine that Lola Mutugu used to work for, and
Sure,
that's how I knew her.
sure.
And she approached me once I had quit Tehelka and I was hanging around, and said that like she was in Goa and she wanted to do something. So since I had a lot of time available suddenly, I said, sure, I can help you in Delhi. I can liaise for whatever you're doing in Delhi.
Right.
And this idea came about of doing a public art festival, and we were going to do it on the street. So that sounded exciting to me, and
Right.
the whole process was great fun. And uh, but yes, I do understand when you say that festivals have to take into account that they become a bubble, and I think that tends to happen to festivals if you don't consciously work against that.
Right.
um, I'm not sure what the first edition felt like. It to me of Goa Photo. After that, I have actually not been involved at all, trying to make a living.
Sure.
So I haven't been involved in the day to day at all. I in fact I couldn't even be there for the last one. So I think it's changed. The Goa Photo specifically has changed its formats. So first it was what we did was a public arts thing, which was outdoors, and we had very large scale prints, uh, which actually got a lot of people looking at the work, at least because they were at outside a church, at a road crossing,
Right.
along along the boulevard in Panjim. So they were all very public places, and they did, as a result of that, at least get seen. But yes, I think all festivals do tend to attract the same crowds. That, well, the same crowd will go to Kochi, the same crowd will
Yeah.
go to Chennai, and
Exactly.
it becomes a bubble at one level. So I think the last edition of Goa Photo tried to sort of address that by moving indoors, and they moved in. They used homes of people as a setting for the exhibition, and tried to involve
In Aldona,
the
if I'm,
community.
yeah, it was in
In,
Aldona.
in a, yeah. I wasn't there, and I really haven't been part of the the organizing at all since the first session. So I don't know the details, but yeah, it seemed like it was I mean, for me, it sounded like a great evolution,
Yeah,
because
exactly.
it was actually involving locals in the process, and also I felt, I don't know if that is exactly the case. I feel that would also create a certain economy. That if you're renting homes, you should be renting. You should be paying people for participating, I think.
Right.
So if you're renting homes, and maybe that home can figure out a way of not monetizing it, but it becomes more useful, right? And then
To supplement
community
their income in some
participation.
way.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, maybe they don't need to supplement it, but it becomes something more formalized,
Right.
as opposed to, oh, this month I'll do this, and other people also then become interested. So I think that approach does have some use. Uh, I think it can evolve into something
and it's
organically.
hyper-local as well, which is another good thing, because then again, you don't know who's going to be influenced, and a local kid or local kids might come and see it, and one of them might want to take this up or do something or learn more. So yeah, there are many.
I think the involvement of local participants still needs work. I mean, at every festival that I've attended, I think Kathmandu photo was probably the most open and well attended by a whole variety of people. It felt like that, and it's also photographer run, and it's got a very nice team sort of feeling. Nantara does a fantastic job, and everyone actually. So I really appreciate that model. It's more organic.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Something more organic and authentic to the place and the people there, and also egalitarian, so that it's open to anybody and it's not just for a.
I think people are trying. I think people are definitely trying to address those situations.
Right.
Even here, it's not just Kathmandu, but I just felt Kathmandu does it really well.
Sure. So now I'm going to go back again to your website quickly, and yeah, great. So we are now looking at Inbetweeners, which is a project you'd done a few years ago, and I'm just going to quote what you were saying. Instead, now I quote, instead, I found myself drawn unconsciously to people who seemed like me to be in some sort of liminal state, in between people who had found a moment in an otherwise busy day, for stillness that disrupted the norm of the purposive, city dweller. You said these words as part of your series, of course, that you're looking at Inbetweeners, which juxtaposes scenes from Delhi and Tokyo. Why is stillness and a sense of receiving important for those who observe and translate these observations in whatever medium they choose?
Okay.
Stillness and receiving, those are the two.
I think I've always felt that to be a fly on the wall is a very good ability to have if you're going to be documenting things and intruding into people's lives. To be innocuous and not really get too much attention is a skill, I think, and I quite enjoy that. I think I do manage to do that, and so these pictures were put together for a show. They were not made with that in mind at all. They were made while I was hanging around outside my office, probably smoking, killing time, on slow days. This is outside where I used to work at Open Magazine. This is Panchil Park, Shapur Jat market. It's a nondescript little market. It has one theka, one liquor shop, and one shop which supplies pretty good everyday food for the people who work there. Penguin used to have an office there at that point. So it's a very nondescript market apart from that theka. So it has a whole bunch of people that come in through the day, don't really stay there. Some people use that as a drinking ground. It's hot. The sort of places to sit, shadowy places, shady places. It's a whole mix. And there's a parking lot. It's really like your average corner sort of office lot area. It looks like a lot of Delhi. it's not very special. I didn't go into Shapurjat. I was literally in that sort of 150 meter square area. So yeah, so this was just pictures I made while I was being still, while I was cutting away from something in office, or
Right.
yeah. So I think that's where these pictures sort of were made, how these pictures were made, and then when there was some talk of doing a show as at the Japan Foundation, and they were looking at some of my Japan work, which I didn't really feel was strong enough, and I thought maybe we can juxtapose them and see if there's
Sure.
some play that emerges. Yeah.
I'm
So it was
looking-
it was just an experiment to put them together.
And just for the tech junkies out there, this was this shot on film, or was
All
there?
film. Yeah, this is all film. I had a contact. Sorry.
Yeah. No, continue.
The all of this is on film. I had a contacts which again I take pictures and then leave them on and then don't develop the roles for many years. So again, some similar thing happened here also.
I'm also guilty of these kind of things. Yes. Yeah. So
I always enjoy that process more because you
yeah.
forget
Yeah.
what's here, and it's a bit of a surprise.
Yeah, I kind of
There's
like that too. And I kind of like also that it jogs, certain memories are jogged, certain things where you look at it, you'll be like, wow, where did I take this? You know, like, and then you have to sort of really rack your brains to figure out where you were, what the feeling was, what the, thought process was when you did that.
There's
And
a
now,
bit of a self-portrait.
oh, okay, here, right.
Yeah, I thought I'd be Kabir, put my name in it.
So, and then we move on to, the from black and white to color, a conversation in a different sense between your work in Tokyo as well. So you went to Tokyo. Did you go to Tokyo just to visit, or did you go there for something in particular, or what was the purpose behind these?
I actually went there to take pictures and write about the Yokohama Biennale. I think they were looking for someone who would do both, and I fit the bill somehow. So I was literally roaming around. My father teaches Japanese history. I mean, he's taught Japanese history for his entire life, I think. And my parents lived in Japan, so it was a bit of a. I'd never been, obviously, so it was sort of discovering certain things that I'd heard about, seen in photos. So my parents lived there in the 70s while my father was doing his PhD. And he actually shot a lot of what he saw on color slide, which was, new at that point. He couldn't have got it in Delhi. So I need to go back to some of that work and I don't know, see.
That would be an interesting.
There's a lot of stuff.
Yeah, and especially
that's definitely something I've been wanting to work on.
Yeah, your eye and his eye, how the same place as well. So, and of course, even this looks like some of these pictures also look like they were taken back in the 70s or 80s. Of course, some things are dead giveaways, but there are like for instance this one where this man is slumped over.
Right.
And you look at his clothes, and there's no real giveaway of modernity or a contemporary kind of a situation.
Yep. I mean, I love these I forget what they're called, these bar type places where you eat sushi bars.
Right. And there's a whole, I think there's a whole show on, these. I won't name the platform and give them free publicity, but yeah, there's a whole show on this guy who goes to these places. Anyway, and of course your love of graffiti and this thing. So these are all people on the street. Were you talking to them? How was it working? Or were you just taking pictures?
So
there's so many people shooting there.
With these, these were the portraits of the girls were at a place called Harajuku. Harajuku is like the fashion capital of Tokyo, the center of Tokyo.
Right.
There's a street there which is very hip apparently, or at least it was at that point. Right. And so these are girls who just dress up and sit around this park. They come there and they do their makeup. So there are a lot of photographers. I mean, there are a lot of tourists there like me. So I was hanging around, and I think I started talking to one or trying to talk to one who was a little more friendly, and they were really okay with people taking pictures. Right. And most tourists were doing the the version of the 2002 selfie or 2006 selfie, whenever this was, posing with them. But I wasn't really interested in doing those pictures. I was just hanging around, and I really didn't have anything else to do at that point. So I spent half the day walking around the park, uh, sign language conversing, sometimes conversing a little bit of English.
Right.
Yeah.
And I guess, are you also like
And
me?
they were also sort of killing time, right? They were also, I mean, it was just a thing to do
Right.
for teenagers, it seems,
And
and very elaborate, I must say. I mean, like it was fascinating watching someone regular looking transform into this. Though they weren't very comfortable. I didn't take pictures without makeup, let's say, somehow.
But it's a very Japanese thing, right? These kind of obsessions that
Yeah,
they have
these I mean, I have to be honest, these situations are very touristy in that sense. Harajuku, I'm sure a lot of tourists go to.
Yeah.
I'd heard about it and, read about it a little before. So I was interested. I was interested in going to Skiji, which is the images which come up now, which
The
are
fish market.
the fish market. And, I'd read a fascinating book on Skiji in college. I mean, sociology and things, but it was fascinating to read. So I thought, may as well go there. And I think around soon after they shut down sort of the tourists coming in that easily, and now it's more structured, I think. But I roamed around a bit.
And I noticed there's a lot of there's a lot of immediacy and kind of texture and this thing in these images. Was it something that you were thinking about, or was the medium and the fact that it was film and a film camera just sort of guiding you towards that look or that feeling?
I really wasn't I wasn't thinking about these bunch of pictures more than the immediate frame.
Right.
If I'm absolutely honest.
Sure.
So I think these were just moments which worked for me when I looked at the pictures of Delhi when I was trying to put this together, because there are moments of like little respite between work. Someone's grabbing a bite and grabbing a snooze at the same time, or there's there's action happening. I mean, this Skiji is a very mad place. And most of my other pictures are like this. They're pretty active and
right.
People are running around doing things. So they're purposeful. Everyone is very purposeful and not sort of hanging around in the middle. So yeah, so I think this edit was just a play on that,
right.
A play on that liminal state, I guess.
Nice. So this is good talking about that as well. Back to you, and yeah. So we're nearing the end. Don't worry. The light at the end of the tunnel is fast approaching, so you can heave a sigh of relief, and this thing. But yeah. So how does one ensure, and these are things of course that we would have thought about, but I want other people also to understand or think about this a lot more. How does one ensure that the camera doesn't become another tool in a long line of exploitation of those already bearing the brunt of state and institutional bias?
I think by being aware of the power that the camera wields, that I think is the most crucial, because you are going to fall prey to moments where you might not be thinking about how this image might be used. But I think if you keep paying attention to the fact that you are not the story is someone else, your experience, your trials and tribulations about your getting malaria, etc., is not the story.
Right.
So if you pay attention to your subject and try and see things from their or his or her perspective as closely as possible, that's the safest, I think, you can keep them from the camera. I think to remember that you're always going to be in a position of power.
Yeah.
When you're going to be taking pictures of someone else.
Right.
Even though it might not feel like that, you might be scared at that point, but you are still making the decisions. You're framing what is in there, what is not. So you are the one who's all powerful at that point, and you're even more powerful when you're editing,
right.
Because then you really can crop. You can do that. So I think paying attention to what the situation is all about, what your goal is, what your role is. Are you trying to help someone? What do you want to do here? And that tends to guide you I think. Um, and I guess reading what other people are writing on this, because there's always something which is going to be new and you would not thought about it that way, and it might be like, oh shit, I've been doing something without thinking, so let's think about it. So I think reading people writing about photography is very important also.
And also I guess because with that understanding and reading also comes a deeper level of context that you can provide, also respecting people enough to sort of tell their story in an accurate or in a way that has some sort of detail and doesn't just reduce them to like we've discussed it, the appeal of Skin Thunder, just not reducing them to one little thing or one little aspect of their life that you might be focusing on, but it's just still one little aspect of their life.
Yeah.
So I guess all these things, and of course,
photography is in any case limited in that sense, because you're not going to look at 500 pictures, you're going to look at 5, and those 5 pictures will tell you a certain version. Correct. So when you know that you're working with those limitations in any case, then I think being aware of how those limitations may impact the story or impact the person is important. You don't have a right to take pictures of anyone.
Yes, exactly.
Even I find the argument that you should be allowed to take pictures on the street, of course. But like if someone says, no, I don't want you to take pictures, just don't take pictures. It's as simple as that. Right. It's not really anything more. So I think it starts from there, and then depending on the situations and how you're engaging with people, you'll arrive at those situations where you have to make that decision that is this something that the subject might not like. It'll come naturally if you just open yourself up to those ideas, those questions.
Yeah, and read, like you said, it's so important. So I heard you have a deep obsession with motorcycles.
I definitely did.
Okay.
I definitely did. Sadly, the Delhi weather doesn't make it too conducive.
Right. And the particulate matter, I guess.
And that too. And also pillions. In my case, it's more pillion related. Pillions don't want to sit on it, so I have to drive a car.
Right. Fair enough. So that is a short story into your obsession. But yeah,
my obsessions keep changing. At some point, there were motorcycles. Then a fantastic photographer I know, Kapil Das. Right. He introduced me to skiing, which I think is the best. And as he keeps saying, it's a life skill, and I really want to learn the life skill. So I'm trying hard, but of course the realities of the world don't make it easy. So I don't know if we'll get back to I was in Gulmarg this year.
Okay.
I don't know if we'll be. Who knows when we'll go next?
So skiing is a current obsession. I didn't know Kapil Das was into skiing, but yeah.
Oh, he's a snowboarder. Pretty good also. Wow.
Yeah, he's a very multi-talented guy for sure. Oh, he can do a lot of things very well.
Multi is not expansive enough word.
He's a Renaissance man. Can maybe say.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. So must tell him that.
Yeah. So last 2-3 questions finally. What does it mean to trust yourself? Do you trust yourself? First of all.
I think I'm bad at trusting myself. It takes me time. I usually just ask people who are closer to me. Sadaf, my wife, is usually the one I trust more, or good friends. They help. So I think it's a mixture of giving into instinct and having the right people around you to bounce ideas off and arrive at that trust.
And slowly, and I guess it slowly builds up to that point where you're comfortable and you're like, okay, now it sort of makes sense in different levels.
Yeah. Otherwise, it's always just my version, my story, which is there in my head. I know it from the beginning, but you just don't get it right now, right? And so if you give me some feedback and it tells me that, okay, you're. In fact, some of the best feedback on that book dummy I got. Right. I don't know if this is pertinent or not, but some of the best feedback I got was just after we printed it, the first dummy at the printing press, and it had no text. It has zero text apart from my name and the title. Right. And we've been working on these pictures. I've been working with the designers for a few days, and they've been helping me lay out and all of the nitty-gritties.
Right.
And we hadn't really discussed what was in it. I mean, apart from fleeting conversations here and there. So when it was ready, and I was incidentally getting married as well, and I got some cards printed. So they had printed the cards as well, and so there was some enthusiasm that you can't just pick it up and go, spend some time. So I was hanging around, and we started talking about what this book was all about. And I asked them, I was like, why don't you tell me what you think the book is all about? And the feedback I got, they told me the whole story that I wanted to tell. I mean, in terms of what all they were getting from just flipping pages, not reading any text, it wasn't very far from what is, or what I wanted to say. So that felt really good. So I think trusting yourself is always great when you can when you get that kind of feedback from someone else that you trust.
Yeah. And especially when they, like you said, when they had no idea what it was about, and they still saw
Absolutely.
Yeah, they still saw a kernel of what it was. Okay. So I guess we can move on to the last couple. What gives you inner peace and satisfaction? Again, does anything give you inner peace and satisfaction, and can we discuss it in a on the record?
No, we will not discuss this on the record. Just sitting at home and relaxing is the best way to get any inner peace, I think. And friends and animals. I have 2 cats that don't trust me, but don't particularly trust me. They come to eat. So I think, animals and friends.
Sure.
Inner peace and calmness.
And this last one is a little bit of a backhanded plug for myself, or what I'm trying to do here. How important is it to share knowledge freely so that others might learn from our mistakes and triumphs?
I think you've got a very good point there. Yes. When you share information, people can take their cues from that. For me, I think this also works really well for me because I'm very bad at putting my work out there. And I think a lot of photographers are bad at putting their work out
and talking
there.
About their work as well.
Well, that too, of course, we're all terrible at that. So I think that's where I fail the most I mean, I wish I'd be in some ways happy to put the work with someone like, someone I trust and say, here, you do something with it. I think that's what is required. Of course, you need to be sure about what's happening with it. You don't give it to people who you don't trust and do the wrong things. But so I think a platform like this helps me in that sense to think about whatever I've done also, and also to share that information with people who might not have seen or thought about what I've been doing. Yeah.
And also the larger.
I don't know how much interest it is, but hopefully that someone is interested. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Awesome. So thank you so much, Ishan. That was a marathon session, but we've survived and we've made it out. We're out in the daylight again, and we can go back to our regular lives. And
right.
Thank you so much for all those who've checked this out. You are watching Insight, which is a free online knowledge resource, and it's also a collaborative interview series. Ishan has put in as much or more effort than I have to make this happen. So thank you so much, and take care, guys. Everybody out there, stay safe, continue to stay safe, and to be kind to people around you, because that's what matters at the end of the day. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks, Hari.